Have you ever woken up with your heart racing without knowing why? Like, your body's already running a marathon and you haven't even gotten out of bed? Welcome to anxiety, that guest who shows up unannounced, eats all the cake, and even criticizes your playlist.
Today, we're going to open up this emotional treasure chest and talk about what it's like to live with anxiety in modern times. Spoiler alert, it's not just being nervous. It's a combination of notifications, unrealistic expectations, fear of the future, and that persistent thought, what if everything goes wrong?
But calm down, it's not just drama. Let's laugh, reflect, and maybe even discover that anxiety has something to teach us, even if it's a bit of an unbearable teacher.
So take a deep breath or try, because today's episode is for anyone who's ever felt their heart race just by opening an email. Let's chat?
According to the World Health Organization, approximately 33% of the global population suffers from anxiety-related disorders. In the US, an estimated 19.1% of adults have experienced an anxiety disorder in the past year. This includes disorders such as generalized anxiety disorder, panic disorder, and social anxiety disorder. Furthermore, 31.1% of adults in the US will experience an anxiety disorder at some point in their lives, according to the National Institute of Mental Health, NIM.
And there's more. A study from Pennsylvania State University showed that 91% of our worries never come true. In other words, anxiety is like that alarm that goes off for no reason, but still makes you panic.
Another interesting fact, anxiety shuts down the rational brain. When the amygdala detects danger, it activates survival mode and releases cortisol and dopamine. The result? You act on instinct, not logic. It's like trying to solve an equation while running from a bear.
And get this, women are twice as affected by anxiety disorders as men. This has to do with social, cultural, and even hormonal factors. The pressure is real, and so is the impact.
And finally, more than half of people with anxiety have sleep problems. Because when you lie down, your brain decides it's time for a marathon of thoughts. And spoiler alert, none of them are relaxing.
But if anxiety exists today, where does this mess come from?
Anxiety doesn't just appear. It has roots. And sometimes, they're deeper than we imagine. Let's take a look at the main causes that turn the brain into a battlefield.
First, chronic stress. When you live in red alert mode all the time, whether due to work, studies, family, or bills, your body starts to believe it's always in danger. The result? Anxiety as an automatic response.
Second, past traumas. Difficult experiences, such as loss, abuse, or risky situations, can leave invisible scars that manifest as anxiety years later. It's like an emotional ghost that appears when you least expect it.
Third, social pressure and unrealistic expectations. We live in an age where everyone seems to be winning, at least on social media. Constant comparisons and the search for approval can generate a feeling of inadequacy that fuels anxiety.
Fourth, genetic and biological factors. Yes, some people are born with a greater predisposition to anxiety. The functioning of the brain's amygdala, serotonin levels, and even family history all play a role.
Fifth, modern habits. Sleeping poorly, living on your cell phone, skipping meals, not exercising. All of this disrupts the balance of body and mind. And when the body isn't well, the mind screams.
And finally, the classic, fear of the future. Anxiety loves to feed on what if. What if I lose my job? What if I'm not enough? What if everything goes wrong? It's as if your brain were the screenwriter of a horror movie, and you, the protagonist.
How many times have you heard, "We didn't have this back in my day"? Or, "You make up problems because you have everything"? Yeah, this is a common saying and completely wrong.
Anxiety has always existed. It's just that before, it was called nervousness, weakness, or simply ignored. People suffered in silence, without a diagnosis, without treatment, without a place to talk about it. Today, we have a name, studies, and the courage to face the problem head-on.
And look at this data. According to the World Health Organization, WHO, anxiety isn't just among young people. It includes adults, the elderly, workers, mothers, fathers. It's not exclusive to Generation Z.
The difference is that today we have more access to information, more openness to talk about mental health, and also more triggers. Social media, economic crises, climate change, political polarization. All of this directly affects our emotional state.
And there's more. A study showed that generations Y and Z face higher levels of anxiety precisely because they grew up in an unstable, hyper-connected world full of unrealistic expectations. It's not drama, it's context.
So, the next time someone says, that's a spoiled young person's thing, maybe it's time to respond, no. It's a thing for people who finally have the courage to ask for help.
And let's go further. Anxiety has always existed, but the difference is that people know better how to identify it today.
Let's be serious. When someone older says, back in my day, there wasn't such a thing as anxiety, what they really mean is that there wasn't room to talk about it. But the symptoms? They were there, they were just disguised.
Classic example, alcoholism. For decades, alcohol was an emotional outlet for many people. It was socially accepted, even encouraged. But behind those many drinks, there was anxiety, depression, and untreated trauma.
Another example, the so-called female hysteria. In the 19th century, women suffering from anxiety, depression, or any intense emotion were diagnosed with hysteria. They were treated with isolation, electroshock therapy, or even hospitalization. It was anxiety, but with a sexist and cruel label.
And the men? Many were labeled as explosive, tough, too quiet. But in reality, they were dealing with repressed emotional disorders, which manifested as aggression, addictions, or psychosomatic illnesses. The worst part is that part of this problem still persists. If you, as a man, grew up hearing that men don't cry, you are repressed. And the result of this can't be good.
We also can't forget the cases of madness. People with anxiety or panic attacks were hospitalized, marginalized, and often medicated without proper diagnosis. It was easier to call them crazy than to understand what was happening.
So, when someone says this is a weak generation thing, maybe it's time to remember that their generation also suffered, just in silence, without a name, without support, and often with much more serious consequences. And today, our generation pays the price for this neglect.
Today, we talk about anxiety. We seek help. We share. And that's not a weakness. It's courage. Because facing what you feel requires much more strength than pretending everything is fine.
Besides, anxiety isn't just an individual issue. It's a collective one. It's a reflection of a world that was built, or rather, messed up by the generations that came before ours.
We grew up hearing that you have it all. You can't complain. But what we got was a planet in a climate crisis, an unstable economy, political polarization, and a culture that glorifies success while ignoring suffering.
Baby boomers experienced the height of economic stability, but they also created systems that today suffocate. The logic of infinite growth, unbridled consumption, productivity above all else, it became a trap.
Generation X navigated political and social crises, but also normalized burnout as a badge of honor. Working until you drop became a virtue. And now, when we try to slow down, they call us fragile.
And the result? A generation that lives in fear of not being able to pay rent, that sees the planet melting, that doesn't know if they'll have a pension, and that is bombarded with information 24 hours a day. This isn't drama, it's survival.
Anxiety is a natural reaction to a world that demands too much and offers too little. It's the body saying, this isn't normal. And you know what's even more ironic? The same people who created this chaos now say we're too sensitive, when it's entirely their fault.
But maybe our sensitivity is precisely what will save this world. Because feeling is the first step to change. And if anxiety is the alarm, maybe it's time to listen to what it's trying to tell you.
Every alarm exists for a reason, right?
Exactly. We didn't choose to be born into this world. But we choose every day how to respond to it. And even though anxiety visits us, it also reveals to us that we are still feeling. We are still alive.
Perhaps the greatest revolution of our generation is this: to feel, question, and resist cynicism. And also to build something new, even with trembling hands.
Because if the world we inherited was built on haste, profit, and silence, the world we want needs to be built on pause, care, and courage.
Anxiety is not a weakness. It's a sign that something needs to change. And maybe, just maybe, we'll be the ones to make it happen.
So take a deep breath. You're not alone. And if this world seems like too much to carry, remember, you didn't come to carry everything, you came to transform. Don't insist on carrying a weight that isn't yours. It might be intense. It might hurt a little. But it also has meaning. And sometimes that's all we need, to feel like we're not alone in this chaos.
We don't have all the answers, but we do have honest questions. We have the courage to look within, and we have the desire to do things differently.
If the world outside seems too noisy, let us be a refuge. A place where vulnerability isn't weakness, but strength in the form of truth.
Thank you for being with us, for listening with an open heart, and for enduring, even on the days when it seems difficult.
Take care of yourself. With kindness, with patience, with affection. Because you matter. And that was never just a cliche.
We're signing off here. Remember to support our work if you enjoyed today's conversation. Subscribe to the channel, like, and comment on what you thought about our conversation today.
Please consider supporting our work with a symbolic donation. The link is pinned to the screen and in the comments.
See you in the next episode. See you then.
Bye-bye.